guys in the dark.
My name is Chloe, and I was one of 3 women who was terrified by this cyber stalker named Andrew. He had been spying on all of us through our own laptops. Andrew was later on sentenced to 12 months suspended for 2 years, ordered to pay $2,100 towards prosecution costs, and was made the subject of a sexual offenses prevention order, forbidding him from accessing anything with an internet browser that didn't save the history of sites that he had visited. He was also banned from owning any kind of device that was capable of moving or keeping still images, unless he was willing to have it checked by the police at any time that they desired. In addition, he was to undergo 2 years of probation supervision, take part in 20 sessions addressing his behavior, and had been put on the sex offenders registry list for 10 years. This is how my story went. I was at my call center job. After I was done putting down the phone, I had leaned back into my office chair, and I told everybody that I was exhausted, and asked everyone if anybody wanted some coffee while I was on my break. Suddenly, there was a call from right behind me. "I'll join you," said a man's voice. I smiled to myself. I really couldn't think of anyone better to spend a coffee break with than with Andy. Andy was new in the place. He had joined just a week before, and with his new twinkly eyes and sense of humor, he was the perfect person to relax with. I handed him a cup of coffee. I said, "So what brings you here?" He explained that he was 28 years old, a student studying from a degree at Goldsmiths. I needed extra cash to help fund my studies, he had told me. Over the next few days, Andy had finally grown on me more. He was clever, brilliant with computers. If any one of us had problems, we would just ask Andrew. He had a laid-back charm that I found very attractive. He asked me one day if I fancied a picnic. The sun happened to be shining outside. A few hours later, I'd found myself sharing sandwiches with him in Greenwich Park. He had a great sense of humor. As we had talked about work and our lives, I found myself laughing with him a lot. From there on, we became a couple. He was unlike any other boyfriend that I had had before. He was reliable, trustworthy. Within a few weeks, he took me to meet his family. His parents were lovely. Clearly, they had adored him. I could see why, though. There was a vulnerability about him, something boyish about his charm. I had noticed early on that he couldn't resist a flutter on a fruit machine, but when I lent him $700 cash, he had paid it all back within weeks. So I turned a blind eye to it. That said, there was something about him that wasn't quite right, but I couldn't put my finger on it. One day, we sat there in bed chatting. He had told me about how he missed a plane flight. I was in the bar waiting to be called, and I just didn't realize what time it was. Only he'd told the friend that he was going to see that he had been struck down with kidney failure. I said someone had called an ambulance, and that had taken me directly to the hospital, he had joked. I smiled, but inside I was shocked at what I heard. Why would he make up a lie about that? Still, I didn't really dwell on it. After all, there was plenty to like about him. Lying on his bed after making love, I felt like the luckiest woman in the world. Then suddenly he ruined it. "You see that over there?" he said. I looked to where he was pointing, and on the window I saw a tiny little silver camera. "I've been filming us while we had sex," he had told me. I had bolted upright, pulled up the sheets. I felt anger rising deep inside of me. "How dare you?" Tears were streaming down my cheeks. The thought that he'd been filming me without my consent was just horrifying. "I want you to delete it," I told him. He refused, though, putting his arm around me, saying, "Surely you'd rather that I watch us than porn." "It was only for us," he said. "Just some harmless fun. I didn't want to spoil our wonderful weekend, so I just let it go." A few weeks later, I woke up to find him sat up on the bed, going right through my phone. "What are you doing?" I had asked. I guess he didn't realize that my mobile was private, but he seemed unconcerned when I told him to stop doing that. "Don't go off on one," he said. "I'm just trying to find that video game that I said you'd like." Then he said that he'd been thinking that I would find a proper place to set up my laptop. "Why didn't you move that chest of drawers to the bottom of your bed?" he suggested. "It'll be much easier for you to watch TV like that than resting it on the duvet." He did have a point, though. When we had set up the laptop in its new position, we both sat in bed watching a film. He was right. I had a great view of the screen now. It was on the chest. Weeks had passed. I had tried to put my doubts about him onto the back of my mind. Until one day, Andy had said that he had something to tell me. Incredibly, that he wanted to finish. "I really don't think that it's working," he said. It came out of the blue. But I certainly wasn't going to beg for him to reconsider. If he didn't want to go out anymore, then that was just fine by me. 2 months had went by. I was getting on with my life, and I had moved on from Andrew. But then suddenly a friend had called me one day. She was visibly upset. A friend had given Andy her laptop to fix, but when she got it back, her Skype webcam wouldn't work. As she had told me the story, she became hysterical. Her housemate had a proper look and found spyware that had been uploaded to it. She said, only it hadn't uploaded properly, and that's why the Skype didn't work. The spyware had taken film as the person had uploaded it. Shockingly, the spyware was put there by Andrew, and the woman had now contacted the police. It was a shock, but I was really confused. So what does this have to do with me? She had sighed. Andrew isn't the person you thought that he was. That's all. I had put down the phone. Yes, I thought Andrew was odd, but all this had happened with somebody else. It was nothing to do with me. The next day my friend had rang once again. She told me that I had to check my laptop. I could hear my heart thumping in my chest. Following her instructions, I decided to grab my laptop. Inputting the letter I into the search section of my computer, I waited for it to search for my spyware that she was sure that I would find. "So what do you see?" she asked me. I could barely speak, because there it was, iCam, an app that I had never seen before, and the same thing that the other woman had found on her laptop had just popped up. Shaking, I said that I would call her back. I called the police and told them that someone had been spying on me through my computer. He was arrested, and my worst fears had came true. "There's evidence that he viewed thousands of pictures of you," said the officer. "There was images of me getting undressed, and in my bedroom. There was even an image of me finding the iCam out. My face was white with shock. And there was even more. The police had found evidence that had been spying on a third woman through her laptop as well. Andrew had planted the same spyware on her computer, where it had been remained for 18 months unnoticed. From the comfort of his own home, via his own computer or his mobile phone, he was able to watch us through our laptops. I felt sick as I realized that that was why he wanted me to reposition the laptop at the foot of the bed, and it was why he finished with me so suddenly. He'd done what he was set out to do, which was plant the spyware right on my laptop. He was arrested. A few weeks later, he had sent me a letter, claiming that he only did it because he thought that I was having an affair. Back in May of 2014, at Crown Court, a jury heard Andrew was a modern-day peeping Tom who had taken the images for his own sexual gratification. The software was set up to take a photograph every few seconds and then send it to him without any one of us having any idea that it was going on. They found him guilty of 2 counts of voyeurism on the other 2 women, and also admitted a further 3 counts of unauthorized computer accesses. One of them related to me. He was sent to 12 months in prison and sentence suspended for 2 years, with the sign of sex offenders registry for 10 years, and the fine, and all of that other stuff. I am now trying to rebuild my life. It's definitely hard. I thought that I was a good judge of character, but I was taken in by Andrew. It was such an enormous abuse of trust, and I don't know if I can ever trust anyone ever again. I haven't had another relationship since then. Instead, I question everyone that I meet and everything that they do. I hope only telling my story will encourage other women to be vigilant and double-check their mobiles and their computers. I never imagined that anyone would spy on me, and I wouldn't realize it. But if it can happen to me, it can definitely happen to anybody else. My name is Cassidy, and I'm a beauty pageant winner. I've been cyber-stalked for over a year before I even realized that someone was watching my every single move. The truth had came out when I received an email from Facebook. It had alerted me of suspicious activity. I realized that my other social media profiles had been compromised as well. Passwords had all been changed. My Twitter profile had been changed to an image showing me partially nude. I was underage at this point, and had never seen the photo before. About 30 minutes after the email from Facebook, I received an email from my stalker. The email reads as follows. Here's what's going to happen. Either you do one of the things listed below, or I upload these pictures, and your dream of being a model will be transformed into a porn star. Do one of the following, and I will give you back all of your accounts and delete those pictures. 1. You send me good quality pics on Snapchat. 2. You make a good quality video. 3. You go on Skype with me and do what I tell you to do for about 5 minutes. If you don't do those, or if you simply ignore this, then those pictures are going up all over the internet. It's your choice. I told my parents about the email. They immediately had contacted the FBI. Agents began their full-scale investigation. After doing a forensic analysis of the infected laptop that I had, the agents discovered that I'd been infected with malware. The program was called Black Shades, had turned my laptop into the eyes and ears of the assailant. For over a year, I'd been sharing my bedroom with the stalker. They quickly found my cyber stalker. The culprit was named Jared, and had been my high school classmate. Although I was never friends with Jared, I knew who he was. Ironically, me being the only semi-famous beauty queen that he actually knew personally, he had also infected up to 150 computers of other women. Some were based up in the United States. Others were abroad. The youngest victim was 14 years old. Jared was convicted, and he was sentenced to 18 months in prison. Personally, I don't think that's long enough, but that's what the court system demanded.
If you enjoyed this video, please subscribe, like, and hit the bell for notifications on future videos, and become a stalker of the night. And I'll see you next time.